Okay, selection tools. The first two tools at the top of our toolbar are the selection tool, which is that black arrow, and the direct selection tool, which is the white arrow. The black arrow is our selection tool. Like I mentioned, you use this to select an entire object. If you want to move that object, you can move it using the black arrow tool. If you want to resize the entire thing, you use your black arrow. If you wanted to rotate your object, you would also use that black arrow or the regular selection tool. If you wanted to change colors, same thing. So you'd use your selection tool, select your object, and change the color of it. Okay, so direct selection tool. Now we can do kind of some more fun things with that. So if I like the size of this rectangle, but I just want to modify maybe the corner of it. So I could use my direct selection tool, my white arrow, and I can modify one part of it. So notice I click and release on a corner. Now I can click and drag. If I'm just going to step back here. So if I click on one of my anchors and I try to move it that way, I don't have that specific anchor selected yet. I have all of the anchors, and I can tell because they're all still solidly filled in. So they're all solid blue. Let me zoom in a little bit so you can see a little bit better. See, they're all solid blue. So that means I haven't selected one specifically yet. But if I click and release, now I can tell that this one is filled in, but the other three are still white. So that indicates to me that I have selected this anchor. So don't forget that little step. I still sometimes do it, but now I can modify this anchor without modifying the rest of them. So now I can pull that in. I can pull this out. I can change my shape to a diamond if I want to, or whatever the case may be. So if I want to modify the shape and then I need to get that out of my way, I'll move it. I'll switch to my black arrow or my selection tool, and now I can move it. And again, rotate it using the black arrow, and then maybe I come back and modify the shape some more. Whoops. Exactly what I was talking about. I chose my direct selection tool, and then I thought that I could just modify one of my anchor points, but I couldn't. So I need to click and release, and now that one is selected. Again, this one's filled in. These are still white, so they are not selected. And now I can move this one anchor. Okay, so that's a modified rectangle. Our circle. So the circle kind of works the same way, but it kind of works differently as well. So when I can move it using my black arrow, my selection tool. Cool, right? But if I want to modify the shape, again, click and release, and now my handles pop up, and now I'm going to click, and now I can move this anchor around. So I can move it down to make a smiley face. I can make it a more of an egg shape by moving it up. So I have the option of moving anchor points, but I have the option as well of moving my handle. So notice that as I move my handles, I'm modifying the curve. So that's what those handles control, is that curve. So I click, and now my handles show up, and now I can move that handle around and modify it, make it into, I don't know, some weird little shape. Okay, cool, right? If I want to modify more than one anchor point. So again, I have my direct selection tool, my white arrow. I can select maybe 2 anchor points. So notice these are white, so they're not selected. These 2, however, are selected. So whatever I'm doing is modifying both of those 2 anchor points. So notice they're moving together in unison. If I want to now just affect this one anchor point, I can switch back and just click and release on that one. And now I'm modifying just that one anchor point. Okay, so those are the direct and regular selection tools in a nutshell.